planning tool that insulates you from competition. This solution is so simple, it is profound. Clients immediately understand the job description assigned to each account, which leads to 100% of the assets coming your way. Hey, welcome back again to the Rare Advisor. I'm excited today. I'm going to be spending some time with Matt Eilers. He is our Chief Business Development Officer here at USA Financial. And most specifically, we're going to dive into what's known as the Asset Cycle Portfolio System, or those who are familiar with it and use it consistently, the ACP. This is a piece of software. It's proprietary technology that we have built out. But more importantly than that, it's a conversation. It's how to position your entire planning process with the investor, with the consumer. So as I like to say, it's so simple, it's profound, because probably for the first time ever, you're going to find that your clients will actually understand what's going on inside of their plan. We're not going to overwhelm them with 100, 150, 200 page financial plan. You're talking about maybe 15 some odd pages that come out of an asset cycle portfolio system plan. And what it does is it truly assigns job descriptions to each and every one of your assets. And so with that being said, Matt, I know you are like rolling up the sleeves and have your arms dug into the ACP on literally a daily basis working with advisors. So I gave a little bit of an overview, but what I'd really like to have you explain as you start to kind of unfold the ACP for folks is how it changes the conversation with the investor, because I think that's probably the most important part. That sometimes people get all googly-eyed about the technology, but it's what it does to the conversation that's so important, at least in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me back on the Rare Advisor. And what you just said is a perfect, I think, starting point. It's what I've viewed the asset cycle as one of the biggest advantages that I've seen it in all my years helping advisors with it is, first and foremost, for advisors that are wanting to make the transition from product-based selling to selling a plan, it is like a tool that they have to use, because for the first time, it is, you mentioned so simple, it's profound. It's a solution that allows the story to be told. And it allows you to show them the entire financial plan. And it's a way to put it in very simplistic terms, in a way that they can understand, and they can understand the job description for each asset. They can understand the purpose for each account within their financial plan. They understand the role that all of the different holdings take place. Now, for an advisor that is selling product, just product alone, and for a client that's not understanding a plan, what we see is it's a little bit harder, I guess, leaping point to get someone to the point of engagement, because they've got to buy into, all right, this specific product, what are the features and benefits of it for me? What are the returns? What it's going to do? And they very much focus on the things that aren't as sticky. For someone that is adopting purpose-based planning, right, where they have an entire financial plan, and now the client understands, all right, I own these 5 accounts, and it's because this account does this. This account is for this income in years 6 through 10. This account is for long-term growth, and so on and so forth. When they start to understand those things, it becomes less about the individual product and more about the overall plan in general. So we find that when advisors use Asset Cycle, and when they're able to tell this story, that clients understand the plan and they care less about the products that go in there. So the advisor can then go do what they're best at, which is shop the marketplace, align the investor with the actual tools that are best for them. And they're not so much stuck in this sales conversation about, oh, I need to sell you this specific product because of this rate and this feature. It's, hey, look, for the plan that we drew up, these are the best tools for the job. And when they're all work together, this is the best combination of tools that are out there in the industry. So one of the biggest things I see is for that advisor that's trying to make this shift from product-based selling to selling a plan, using a tool like this is huge, because the client needs to have an understanding of what the plan is versus focusing on the individual product.
Yeah, I think it's really a mental shift for the advisor as well. But what I was going to really say is it's a mental shift for the client, for the investor, but it's a very welcome mental shift. It's something that kind of puts them at ease. In fact, I see the golfer over your shoulder there, and it's kind of a cheesy analogy, but when you think about it, like golf balls are constantly getting replaced. That's kind of like product sales. You're constantly trying to outdo the previous golf ball. This one's softer. This one has better spin. This one you can drive farther, so on and so forth. But the reality is, when you look at the golf bag, most people fall in love with their golf clubs, and they tend to keep them for a very long time. And that's really the difference. You've got the product sale, which is like out there peddling these golf balls. And then you've got the true planning approach, which is essentially, I've got a collection of golf clubs and each one of them has a job description. When I'm in the sand, I know exactly which club I'm going to pull out of there. When I'm on a par 5 and I'm standing in the tee box, I know exactly which club I'm going to pull out of there. When I hit the green, I know which club I'm going to pull out. And so, the idea that you've got the tools in the bag that will approach this planning process so that now there truly is a job description. I love when you say that, because you can take this cheesy analogy I'm giving you and you can apply the same concept, because every golf club in your bag has a job description. And we're just saying the same thing needs to happen in your financial plan. Every account you hold needs to have a job description. And it's called the asset cycle portfolio system for a reason, because there is truly a cyclical effect in which we identify and will ratchet over time how the assets will get moved and how their job descriptions will come into play at different stages during the retirement process.
Yeah, for sure. And, one thing that I want to touch on that makes this so important, when you think about purpose-driven planning and you think about the job descriptions and the roles and responsibilities for each asset, a part of the process that's critical in getting a client to realizing why they own what they own is, in the beginning, showing them that they don't realize why they own what they currently own. And we talked about that in one of our previous conversations about the appointment process, another previous Rare video. But when someone's following a process like ACE, the appointment process, and they're going through and they're asking account questions about, how did you come to own this asset? But basically, what's the purpose of it? And what are the indicators or triggers that dictate when you should sell or make changes? That's a critical part of this process in introducing purpose-driven planning, because we need them to realize all these holdings they currently have, all the assets they're sitting on right now, they don't know why they own what they own. They don't realize what the role is in the plan. So for clients, we see it's very refreshing, because when they go through this process, and it really is a process to acknowledge that, man, we don't have a plan. We just have a bunch of stuff. We're going to go through, we're going to engage something like asset cycle planning. When they come out of the back end of that, and now they see this fully functional plan, and they understand the job description for each asset, it empowers them with so much more information and control about their own financial plan. And what that does is it creates a tremendous amount of stickiness. Because imagine if another advisor tries to insert himself into the relationship. Maybe it's a nephew that gets into the business and guilts them into sitting down at the kitchen table for one night and says, well, Uncle Joe and Aunt Betty, you've got this account here. I can do a better job for you here. Their red flags are going to go up and say, whoa, nephew, that account is actually what's going to trigger our income and our retirement for years 6 through 10. That's already set up and ready to go. We can't touch that. We're not moving that. Right. So it creates this stickiness when they actually understand what their assets are doing for them. And we find that that's one of the biggest issues that investors have. And it's also one of the biggest sales problems that advisors have, is they get stuck trying to sell something that the investors don't understand what it's going to do for them in the plan. The asset cycle simplifies that story. It gives that purpose. It gives that job description. It's really a refreshing conversation that the advisor gets to have with the investor.
Yeah, it is. And it frees up the advisor, because, most advisors, especially those who are just advisors by name, they're really product salespeople. Those individuals, they're out there constantly trying to sell a Swiss Army knife. They're trying to pick one thing that they can peddle to people that, is the end all be all, and it's going to solve all of these problems. Well, what happens is, when you have a Swiss Army knife, you don't have a very good pair of scissors. You don't have a very good knife. You don't have a very good hammer. You don't have a very good bottle opener. You have something that can maybe get you by in a pinch when you've got nothing better to use. but nobody goes after a Swiss Army knife because it's a high quality tool for any single particular job. So what the asset cycle does is it allows you to split this stuff apart, whether it be in time frames or in job descriptions and so on. And so now, if something is designed to provide short-term current income during retirement, well, that's a very different product than my long-term accumulation vehicle. And if I'm trying to get my long-term accumulation vehicle to provide short-term income, now I'm undercutting its value as a long-term accumulation vehicle. And there are different features and benefits I'm going to look for in terms of how those products are structured based upon the role I want them to play inside of this plan. So now suddenly, as you already kind of pointed out, I'm just really saying it in a different way. When you get to the end of the plan, now you've got all the best tools for the job. You've assembled their toolbox, and they have a Phillips, they have a hammer, they have a saw, they have all the things they need, but they've got the ones that are best for those jobs, because now we can assign them and can bring them together as a team, if you will, as opposed to, just a single product sale.
Correct. And one thing that, you just made me think of is, while there's probably a lot of advisors out there that do exactly what you said, right? They actually are good at purpose-driven planning, but what they've struggled with is at the point of sale, simplifying the story so the clients can actually understand it. And imagine being able to sit down with a client and explain a financial plan without having to show any individual company illustrations or a 150-page Monte Carlo simulation.
Right.
For us, we're inundated with that stuff all the time. Like, as advisors, we could look at that stuff and we could understand what's going on. But for somebody that doesn't live in that world like we do, they look at that and it is completely Greek to them. And by golly, like if there's just one piece of the investment of 5 accounts that they're going to do, and they're looking at that, they may be just struggling to figure out what the heck this thing is. And relative to how it works with all the other 4 things, like people, they tend to freeze up, and that creates some issues in the planning process where you can push all that stuff aside. It allows you to position the financial plan from a story standpoint to get them to understand the plan first before you have to dive in to all those specifics. Those specifics are important. Those illustrations are important. They do serve a purpose. But on the front end, to be able to have a tool that really with just a picture shows a potential client, this is what I'm going to do for you. This is what all these accounts working together are going to do for your retirement. That kind of gets them over that hump, and so that they can start to look and understand better all the things that fill those accounts. So it simplifies a story that for some people can be quite paralyzing when they see mountains of paper and tons of numbers and they can't just bring it all together. It brings it together for them.
Yeah. And so that's kind of like front stage, if you will. So for a moment, if you step and look at the other side of it, the backstage. So what's in this for the advisor? Well, what happens is going through this process, the only thing that ends up being for sale is the advisor and the expertise that they bring to the table. So now, the individual isn't buying a particular mutual fund or a particular annuity or a particular stock or a particular life insurance policy. They might be buying all of those things inside of the plan, but those aren't what's for sale. What's for sale is the expertise the advisor is bringing to the equation, the planning process where we're literally going to assign these particular assets within the portfolio for all the various reasons we've been talking about. But the beauty is now it's the advisor who's bringing that value. It's not a product that can easily be replaced by the next advisor who happens to cold call on them or happens to get introduced to them, at the restaurant with their friends or whatever the case might be. So as you pointed out earlier, the insulation factor on using the asset cycle portfolio system is like through the roof, because it's very difficult for someone to dislodge and to take any assets away. And the flip of that is also true. Generally speaking, this will get all the other cooks out of the kitchen, because in order to do this correctly, once a customer starts to realize that you're assigning all of these job descriptions and building this plan accordingly, now they realize that their brokerage account that's over here doesn't match up with the annuity but they bought over there, and the life insurance policy they bought from some life guy 15 years ago, and so on and so forth. And suddenly they're like, can you just take care of this for us? Can you fit this into the plan for us? And sometimes you'll keep some of those old product. There's nothing wrong with that. Some of those accounts might be very usable today, but a whole bunch of them probably need to be transitioned and removed, and they're going to put you on the account and take the old advisor off. And it really becomes a point of distinction that without you ever having to throw any mud at all, it drives a wedge between the other advisor and the client, and you end up being the benefactor of that.
It certainly does. And one thing I want to jump back to that you said, Mike, that I think is really important here that we talk a little bit more about is advisors tend to be like, the value of the relationship tends to be measured by the foundation of how it was started. So for an advisor that is selling product, and that's what starts the relationship. My relationship was started because I sold you XYZ product. Well, every year when they come in for the annual review, how are they basing their value? It's going to be, how did that product do? How did that product perform? Right. The value wasn't on the plan. It was on the individual product. When you take the product side and push it away, focus on the plan, it reshapes every conversation going forward. Now, value is measured by plan progress, not performance. Are we on track with the plan? Have we made the adjustments we need to stay on track with the plan? Versus how did this product perform? Did it outperform? It takes that out of the conversation. So the fact that it keeps those ongoing conversations and annual reviews, it keeps them in the right mindset that it's going to continue to have the value that they're focusing on be in the right place. So they don't get lost in the things that are difficult to measure, because our value, a good advisor's value, isn't measured on a product's performance. It's based on the plan that they create and whether or not the clients are on track for that. So this helps, I think, really reshape future conversations and aid in retention of both assets and clientele.
Yeah. Awesome. So, hey, I tell you what, we are running out of time, but I'm sure there's a lot of advisors, especially those who are not currently working with the asset cycle portfolio system, who would love to find out more. I would encourage you, reach out to Matt and his team here at USA Financial. You can look us up online. There's a million ways to find us. You're not going to have a hard time figuring out how to get a hold of us, but contact USA Financial. You can ask for Matt Eilers. He'll get you connected with his business development team. Good stuff. Please subscribe, give us a thumbs up if you love today's conversation, and we will be back with more. And I'll be inviting Matt back again too. So thanks, Matt. Appreciate your help today.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Always fun.
All right. Thanks, everybody.